Hey guys, hoping all is well with everyone. So in this video we're going to be continuing the read along of The Secret Zoo Secrets and Shadows by Brian Chick. And today we're going to be starting with chapter 20. And as always, I'll be showing you any pictures as we come across them. But please feel free to follow along. Chapter 20. Break on through to the otter side. In the tunnel, something cold and smooth dragged across all sides of Noah. He knew what it had been. Velvet charged with magic. Noah had just gated into Sector 31 of the Secret Zoo, the secret water park. The tunnel came to an abrupt end. On a gush of water, Noah shot into a bright open space surrounded by steep mountainsides. His arms and legs fanned the air as he dropped 15 feet and splashed into a huge pool of water. He swam to the surface through the blinding trail of bubbles his splashdown had created and emerged gasping for air. "Here!" a voice called out. He swung his head around. Perhaps 20 yards away, Ella and Megan were clinging to otters, 2 for each girl, 1 tucked under each arm. Another pair bumped against him. He draped his arms over their backs and allowed himself to be carried toward his friends. The scouts had been deposited in the middle of a round lake, roughly 200 yards across. The lake butted against steep, rocky mountainsides. It was as if the scouts had landed in the bowl of a volcano filled with water rather than lava. Great trees covered the cliffs and reached across the water, sunlight streaming through their branches. Ropes of ivy draped down. Waterfalls dropped from the hidden heights, spilling over rocks and raising clouds of mist. Smooth channels were etched into the granite parts of the mountainsides. Filled with cascading water, they acted as water slides. Hundreds of otters were cruising down the well-worn paths and splashing into the lake. Otters scrambled over the branches and one another. In the water, more than 30 swam up to the scouts and began to circle them, their long bodies snaking around. Noah looked up and spied the watery tunnel from which he and the other scouts had spouted. It resided in the hollow of a huge branch. Richie suddenly shot out, tumbled gracefully through the air, and struck the water head first and promptly sank. Ella said, "Is it too late to pretend we don't know him?" Richie's head emerged, then bobbed like a buoy with a red cap. Miraculously, he managed not to lose his glasses. He slapped his arms around, splashing water everywhere. An otter bumped noses with him, then unapologetically kicked off against his chest. "Richie!" Ella called. "Over here!" He dog-paddled toward the sound of Ella's voice, not covering much ground, or water, for his efforts. Seeing this, 2 otters squeezed under his arms and quickly carried him over. "You okay?" Ella asked. Richie was coughing too much to answer. Concerned, Ella leaned toward him. "Richie!" His coughing subsided. I think I swallowed an otter." Ella swatted his head, sending his pom-pom into a dance. Just then, Hannah shot out through the hollow in the tree. With a diver's grace, she twirled and flipped and pierced the water, leaving not a ripple. Seconds later, she emerged in front of the scouts. She swept her red bangs off her forehead and asked, "What do you think?" "Piece of cake." "Maybe later," Richie said. "I just ate an otter." More and more otters were swimming around them now, wriggling and looping from spot to spot, only their backs and heads visible above the water. "I don't see the gateways into the city of species," Noah said. "That's because you're not looking in the right spot," said Hannah. Noah pointed to the rising cliff walls and said, "If we need to climb those to get out of here, it's going to take a long more than 10 minutes. Again, you're not looking in the right spot. Remember, you're in a tower." Noah pondered for a moment and realized what he had forgotten. The water. He swarmed off his otters and dove down into the lake. What he saw through the clear water was so breathtaking that he had to surface for air. "What's down there?" Megan asked. Noah took 3 shallow breaths and gasped. "No words. Just look." With that, he sank a second time. The scouts, even Richie, swam after him. Just below the water's surface on each side of them, a distant light blinked above a velvet curtain. The 4 gateways into the city of species. The tower walls, made of glass, slowly curved inward, converging on a point no less than 500 feet below. Through the distant glass floor, Noah saw gleaming columns and realized the tower had two parts, a round tank above a series of columns. With no visible seams or supporting framework, the walls offered an endless view into the city's species. Noah saw buildings and trees and the faint suggestions of animals navigating the winding streets. Almost bursting from the lack of air, the scouts resurfaced. Unbelievable! Richie spluttered, spraying water from his lips. The walls, the glass, the city. It's incredible. But how? Megan looked up and around her. All these mountainsides. What are they standing on? I mean, if everything beneath us is glass, how... Don't smoke your brain thinking about it, said Hannah. I'm not a magical scientist, so I couldn't explain. A what? Noah asked. A magical scientist? Hannah popped her gum. You guys have so much to learn, but not from me, because remember, I don't do the book stuff. Right now, the only thing I care about is getting you guys into the City of Species and back to the Clarksville Zoo. You ready? On behalf of the scouts, Noah nodded. Good. This next part makes getting into the sector feel like a walk in the park. Richie said, You're kidding, right? Hannah winked. Get ready to lose your stomach. Chapter 21. Across the water tower. Each of the scouts once again clung to their pair of otters to stay afloat. More than 100 otters were swimming around them, bumping heads and bumps while leaving V-shaped ripples in their wakes. The animals seemed to be anxious about something. To be heard above splashes and squeaks, Hannah loudly said, Okay, as you guys saw, there were 4 city gateways equally spaced around the water tower. Each gateway opens to a different street in the city. We're going to take... Hannah pointed her finger. That one. She paused, chomped her gum, then said, Ready? The scouts nodded. Just do like I do. She waved her arm above her head as if flagging down a taxi, and about 20 otters quickly closed in around her. She sucked back a deep breath and plunged down. As she started swimming, the otters packed in around her and began kicking their legs and undulating their streamlined bodies, propelling themselves forward. Though their movements were at first sloppy and uncoordinated, they quickly synchronized. From the snout of the first otter to the rump of the last, waves rolled across them as if they were a single unit, causing Hannah to be carried away. Just when Noah wondered how Hannah would breathe, her otters rose to the surface in a smooth arc, allowing her to take a breath before plunging her back down, their pointy tails whipping the air. I'm going, said Megan without hesitation. Cool, Richie said. He pushed his glasses back up the slippery slope of his nose and added, On your way back, let me know how it went. Following Hannah's lead, Megan waved her arm in the air, alerting the otters. Then she dove into the water and began swimming toward the gateway. Quickly, a pack of otters dipped down and squeezed into place along her body. They began to kick and undulate, first individually, then as a unit. Finding their rhythm, they carried Megan forward. I'll go, Ella volunteered next. Before these river rats start munching on my fingertips, which started looking like prunes about 5 minutes ago. She waved her arm and dove down, where a pack of otters quickly gathered around her. Within seconds, Ella was being carried across the tower. Okay, said Noah. My turn. He drew in a breath and plunged in. Sound left his world. He held open his eyes to watch the otters moving around him. He was pulled, poked, and pressed as the animals jostled for position. When they took off swimming, Noah was pummeled by their hard noggins and wide rumps. But soon their movements harmonized, and the otters took control of Noah like a strange underwater puppet. He discovered what it was like to swim with an otter's grace, speed, and flexibility. After a few seconds, the otters brought Noah toward the surface so abruptly that his stomach dropped. They surfaced long enough for Noah to take a breath and then dipped back into the water. They gained speed. Noah peered out over his shoulder. Across the underwater reaches of the water tower, hundreds of otters were playfully chasing him. Seconds later, the otters again lifted him to the surface for air. Noah saw the mountain was less than 30 yards away. Its closeness meant the city gateway was close as well. The otters dipped Noah back down into the water. Soon the world darkened as they swam beneath the mountainside. Noah could make out a shadowy ceiling of rocks and roots. Somehow, the mountain stood on nothing. Noah suspected it clung to the glass walls of the water tower, the way mud clings to a brick wall. The details of the gold curtain came into view: the long vertical folds, the dangling tassels, the gold loops holding the curtain to its rod. Noah could see far across the city of species, its buildings, trees, and streets. It seemed to be waiting for him. The distant animals looked like toy figures spread across a toy city. Panic swept over him. The gateway was hundreds of feet high. How would he safely get down? Just as he had this thought, a thought he should have had all along, the otters released him and veered off, narrowly avoiding the wall. A second before Noah struck the gateway, he threw his arms up to shield his face. He wasn't afraid of the curtain. He was afraid of the fall that waited just beyond it. As Noah soared into the incredible heights above the city of species, he screamed. And I'll stop the video there, ending chapter 21. And as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. But in our next video, we'll be continuing the read-along of The Secret Zoo, Secrets and Shadows, with chapter 22. But as always, guys, please take good care of yourselves, and I hope to see you real soon. Thank you so much for watching.